Well, this could be now or never. South Australia Police have just announced a fourth search that will commence tomorrow morning. That's Tuesday, the 25th of November at Oak Park Station. This is from the official police website. The search, which is expected to last up to 3 days, will involve STAR Group officers and Task Force Horizon officers using specialized equipment, probably ground-penetrating radar, to search 6 mine shafts in the area.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't breathe. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head,
I remember mine shafts coming up very early on after Gus disappeared. Do you remember this image? The uncovered and unfenced shafts, this is according to the police website, are located between 5.5 kilometers and 12 kilometers from the Oak Park homestead in areas not searched on foot by police. Police were not previously aware of the location of these sites. Now that is interesting. How and why were police not aware? I must admit, neither did I. I was aware that these sites existed, but I didn't know where they were. I knew there were mine shafts. My question has always been, how close is the nearest one to the homestead? And now we know the answer. 5.5 kilometers. Let's blow that number up on screen. Could Gus really have walked that far? I think on the night he disappeared, no, but over 2, 3 or more days, certainly. And perhaps if he was out there for a while, maybe he would have eventually sought shelter inside a hole and perhaps died there. And now let's put these words from the police report on screen. Police were not previously aware of the location of these sites. What is that all about? Were they not aware because they didn't ask? Or did they ask and they weren't told? And if they only found out now, how did they find out? And who told them? Because who would be in the best position to know the locations of these shafts but the owners of the property? I mean, if you were going to the property and saying, okay, we're here to look for Gus, do you have any ideas? Surely that would have come up. And surely they would say, well, we know about these sites. They're here and there and there. And they'd take out a map and show them. Is that what happened? Doesn't seem like it. And did the kind, welcoming, open-hearted owners volunteer this information? If they didn't, why not? And if not, who did? How did the police find this out? I'd love to know the answer to this, because even if the closest mine shaft is an unlikely spot for Gus to have wandered off and fallen into, I think the mine shaft is still an excellent site to search, because it might not be where Gus fell inside. It might be somewhere someone chose to dispose of a body, where, think about it, you don't even need to lift a finger to dig a hole for this body to be out of sight, out of reach. Something else that I think is interesting is that the police said they were going to do a fourth search weeks ago, but they've waited until now to say where they are going to search. Now, I wonder whether there was a strategy involved in that. Was that done intentionally? I mean, in communicating their intentions. I wonder whether they've been monitoring movements on the property since the fourth search was announced. I also wonder whether there's someone there on the property that can tell them what the daily activity is or has been. And that brings us to one area we've definitely not explored, which is whether there are additional laborers on the property, and if so, how many? Where do they stay and who are they? And what do they know? At the end of this episode, I want to offer a suggestion about where I would search with dogs, and I'm sure you can guess where I think that is. It's much closer to the station, but it's a specific area. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please do hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is look at this intertextual example dealing with searching for someone and in an area where there are mine shafts. And this is pretty much on the other side of the world to South Australia, which is Colorado in the USA. And as you can see, I've actually been there myself. I remember this, the abandoned mine shafts. It was suggested as a potential scenario presented during the disappearance of Suzanne Morphew, because that area of Colorado has quite a lot of mining activity in the mountains nearby, and it's really dotted with abandoned mine shafts. And besides these deep holes in the ground, there are also machines parked all over the place that dig these holes, or at the very least move the earth. It's kind of earth moving equipment. And we know the suspect in that case had a machine just like this one. It's known as a bobcat, and cadaver dogs allegedly alerted to evidence on it. If you look closely at these photos that I took just off the roadside, not far from the Morphew residence, do you see the mine? This is quite a big one. What I also remember when I visited the Salida area, where people were searching for Suzanne's body at the time, were all the signs telling people to keep out. That's a very convenient way, if something is hidden there, or if someone is up to no good, for it to stay hidden and for secrets to remain buried. Anyway, back to the police report. Deputy Commissioner of Police Linda Williams said the new searches were part of ongoing investigations as part of Task Force Horizon. We are determined to explore every avenue in an effort to locate Gus Lamont and provide some closure for this family, she said. These searches will either locate evidence or eliminate these locations from further investigation by the task force. Now, bear in mind, even if they don't find Gus, they might find evidence. They might perhaps find his boots or some clothing or his hat in these mine shafts. This phase of the investigation is being conducted to ensure all locations of possible interest in a wide radius of the homestead are scrutinized to try and locate Gus Lamont. I do wonder if they're eventually going to, having excluded a wide radius, whether they're eventually going to come back to the homestead. Now, we know the previous search was almost a month ago, when authorities drained a large dam on the property. Do you remember that? And that, I think, was on October 31st. And that was all about eliminating the possibility of Gus drowning. Well, what do you think? Is it more likely he stumbled into a mine shaft almost 5 kilometers away? In my opinion, searchers need to focus on the area surrounding the homestead, especially on the rear side, on the side opposite to where that Daily Mail reporter came knocking. Look closer. It's this side, and it's at the back of that sheet iron building. It looks like a shed. But look even closer at that image. That looks like a machine that could be used to excavate. Perhaps it's a tractor, perhaps something else. I would want to look at that excavator, whatever it is, and areas recently excavated nearby. And you can see in that area is a lot of disturbed earth, even new piles of earth. And of course, it's quite interesting that the last thing the people say that Gus was doing was playing on a mound of sand. I also think it's worth looking into the mine shafts on the property that are the furthest away, and that will certainly take some doing to properly examine these, if only to exclude them from future searches. But who knows, anything can happen, and they might actually find something after all. Well, I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you so much for listening this far, and I'll see you guys next time.